The ceiling above her wavered in her vision, not from illness this time, but from a fury so sharp it almost felt clean. In that furious clarity, the last few weeks snapped into place like a cruel jigsaw puzzle. She remembered the lab reports she'd received secretly. 5 days earlier, lying in the same bed, she had stared at the email from a private toxicology lab in Denver. She'd ordered the analysis behind everyone's back. She didn't even trust her own facilities for this. Unidentified presence, consistent with low-dose administration of X37, it had said, listing the chemical name of a rare palliative care sedative, a drug used on terminal patients to ease suffering. Harmless in tiny doses, lethal over time when combined with chronic intake. She'd convinced herself it was a mix-up, requested confirmation from a second lab. That second report was still folded under her pillow, the letters burned into her mind. Same results, same substance, same warning, risk of organ failure with continued exposure. She had wanted to believe it was a freak error. Nathan's words just now turned that fragile denial into ash. He had done this. The man who had warmed her empty evenings had been stirring poison into her mornings. For money. For her hospitals, her buildings, the numbers in her accounts. Her breathing slowed, not from weakness, but from decision. I am not dying for you, she thought. Not like this. Not as your stepping stone. If she had 3 days, she would use every hour. Her body was a wreck, but her mind was a weapon, and she still had the one thing Nathan coveted most: control. When she tried to sit up, her muscles quivered uselessly. Pain pressed in from all sides. Sweat dampened her hairline. She let herself sink back into the pillow, chest heaving, and forced herself to think instead of panic. She needed someone Nathan wouldn't see coming. Not a doctor, not a nurse, not any member of her executive circle. Nathan could charm or scare any of them. She needed a ghost in her own building. The faint slosh of water and squeak of rubber wheels drifted in from the hallway, the hum of a cart being pushed, the soft clatter of a mop handle. Miranda turned her head toward the door. Her voice rasped when she spoke. "Hey, you, in the hall." The sounds outside stopped. Silence, then a cautious knock. "Ma'am," a young woman called softly through the door. "Do you need something?" "Come in," Miranda managed. The door opened a crack. A woman in a pale blue housekeeping uniform peered in. She was in her late 20s, maybe early 30s, with warm brown skin and dark hair pulled into a practical bun at the nape of her neck. No makeup, dark circles under her eyes, a name badge on her chest. Daniela Brooks. She knew her by sight. She'd seen her pushing carts, stripping beds, emptying bins on floors no VIP ever visited. A quiet girl with a tired gait who stepped out of the way when executives walked past. "Miss Cole?" Danny asked, stepping closer, unsure. "Do you need a nurse? I'm just on cleaning duty." Miranda swallowed. Her throat felt like sandpaper. "Close the door, please." Danny glanced toward the hallway, hesitated, then nudged the door shut with her hip. The latch clicked. She took a few steps toward the bed, hands still gripping the handle of her cart. She smelled faintly of bleach and lemon floor cleanser. "Are you okay? I mean, do you want me to call someone?" "I want you not to call anyone," Miranda said, forcing each word to come out clearly. Danny blinked, startled. "I need your help." The housekeeper's fingers tightened around the cart. "Ma'am, I'm not supposed to... I'm your employer. I own this place. I'm giving you a direct instruction." That made the girl flinch more than raise her chin. Miranda saw the automatic deference of someone who'd spent her life being ordered around. "I could get fired. If I do something wrong, I can't lose this job." "If you do exactly what I say," Miranda replied, lowering her voice, "you'll never scrub another floor in your life." Danny stared at her. Miranda held her gaze. "What's your full name?" "Daniela Brooks. Everyone just calls me Danny. Danny, Miranda said, I happen to know you're still paying off your mother's hospice bills. I know you're 3 months behind on rent. I know you're working overtime shifts under a different name at the downtown laundry to stay afloat. Danny went pale. How do you know that? You filled out a hardship request last year to postpone your own medical copay. I read it. I don't approve every form personally, but yours stuck with me. The girl's eyes filled with tears she clearly didn't want to shed. She blinked them back, jaw tightening. You wrote that you weren't afraid of hard work. You were just tired of watching bills kill the people you loved faster than illness did. Danny swallowed, her throat working. I thought about helping you then, Miranda admitted. Then the quarter got busy and I told myself there'd be time later. There isn't. She drew a shallow breath. I am dying, Danny, but not from bad luck. My husband is killing me. Slowly, quietly, with the drug that shouldn't be in my body at all. Danny's mouth fell open. That's... What? No, that's crazy. I sent my blood to private labs. They found something, a sedative no one here prescribed. He just confirmed it himself, standing exactly where you're standing. Danny's eyes darted to the door, as if imagining Nathan on the other side. And the moment I stop breathing, every clinic, every property, every dollar in my name goes straight to him. Unless I change that now, today. Danny backed up half a step. I don't understand what any of this has to do with me. It has everything to do with you, Miranda said, because I can't trust anyone in my circle. They all know Nathan. He knows them. He can charm or scare any of them. But you're invisible to him, just part of the background. Danny's fingers unclenched slowly from the cart handle. What do you want me to do? She asked. Go to the bedside table. Top drawer, bring me my phone. Danny hesitated for a heartbeat, then crossed the room, pulled open the drawer, fishing out a sleek phone and a charging cord. The device felt expensive and alien in her calloused hands. Unlock screen with my face, Miranda said. Hold it toward me. Danny did. The facial recognition icon spun, then unlocked with a soft click. Contacts, Miranda murmured. Search for Stein. S-T-E-I-N. Danny's thumb hovered over the screen, unsure, then tapped. A name appeared, Laura Stein, attorney. That's my lawyer, Miranda said. Put the phone on speaker and call her. When she answers, tell her exactly this. Miranda says come now. It's urgent and private. Bring a notary. Don't tell anyone. Then hand me the phone. Can you remember that? Danny nodded, the words already forming in her mind like a script. Yeah, I can remember. She hit call. The line rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Laura Stein? A brisk female voice answered. Hi, Danny, said voice suddenly small. Miss Stein? I'm calling from Houston General, from Cole Care Medical, from Miss Cole's room. She says to come right away. It's urgent and personal. Bring a notary and don't tell anyone. Silence for half a beat. I'm on my way, the lawyer said. Put her on. Danny lowered the phone toward Miranda's mouth. Laura, Miranda said, forcing her voice to steady itself. This is not a drill. I need a new will drafted today. Right now, you bring a notary and a physician from outside our system to witness capacity. No one tells my husband, not even by accident. Understand? Miranda, what happened? Laura said carefully. I'm being poisoned, Miranda said flatly. Slowly, deliberately. My blood work confirms it. My husband admitted it, assuming I was unconscious. I will explain everything when you get here. For now, just move. On the other end of the line, the usual detachment in Laura's tone fractured. I'll be there in 45 minutes. I'll bring Dr. Klein from Mercy West. It's a separate network, and a notary I trust. Do not mention this to anyone else. Keep breathing until I arrive. "That's the plan," Miranda said, and hung up. Her strength drained like water through a sieve. The room seemed to tilt for a moment. Danny set the phone gently on the nightstand. "What now?" the housekeeper whispered. "Now," Miranda said, "you sit over there by the wall and you wait." Danny looked bewildered. "Why me? Why am I still here?" "Because when I sign that will," Miranda told her, "I need someone Nathan can't accuse of being coerced or bought. Someone who doesn't owe me anything. Someone who will stand up in court and tell the truth, even if she's shaking." Danny's throat bobbed. "And," Miranda added, voice growing faint, "because everything I own is going to you." It took a second for the meaning to land. Then Danny grabbed the back of the chair to keep from dropping the phone. Miranda Cole woke to the sound of her own heartbeat. Slow, heavy, too loud in the quiet room. For half a second, she forgot where she was. Then the sterile sweetness of hospital air reached her, mixed with the faint scent of lilies someone had placed in a crystal vase. Her gaze drifted up to the ceiling, to the soft recessed lighting she had personally approved for the VIP suites of Colcare Medical. Her hospital, her empire. Nothing in the room had moved. The armchair in the corner, the flowers, the sleek monitors, the tasteful artwork, the floor-to-ceiling window framing the skyline of Houston. Everything was as it had been the previous evening. But everything was different. It sat in the atmosphere, that difference, in the way the air felt thicker, like the pressure before a storm, in the way the hallway outside hummed with fast hush footsteps, no idle chatter, no laughter, just quiet efficiency muffled by guilt. Most of all, it was in the voices. "Nathan Reed," said a man just outside her door. The tone made Miranda's stomach drop before her mind caught up. She knew that voice. Dr. Alan Morris, chief of staff, brilliant, composed, a man she had hired personally 10 years ago. He didn't sound composed now. Miranda let her eyelids relax, just enough for her pupils to narrow to slits. It was an old trick from boardrooms and hostile acquisitions. Look asleep, look disengaged, but listen to every syllable. Sedatives dulled her muscles, but her mind was sharp, almost painfully so. The clarity you feel when you're standing at the edge of a cliff. "Until you're ill," Dr. Morris continued softly. "Her liver function has crashed. The other organs are following. We've exhausted our options. At this point, we're only managing her comfort." "How long?" asked another voice, ravaged and hoarse. "Nathan. Her husband. The man who brought her coffee every morning, who kissed her cheek in front of their friends, who sat beside her at charity dinners, who liked to rest his head on her shoulder while pretending to watch movies he never actually followed." She knew that voice as well as her own name. 3 days at most, Dr. Morris said. Maybe less. "I'm sorry, Nathan." 3 days. The words thudded into her chest like stones. The silence that followed was worse than any sound. Not the silence of hope, but the silence of people who'd finally stopped pretending. It was the quiet that came after the last line on a chart, the final number in a prognosis that wouldn't change. She had run hospitals for 20 years. She knew what that silence meant. So this is it, she thought. This is when they stop saying, "We'll see," and start saying, "I'm sorry." 48 years of relentless work flashed through her mind. Private hospitals, surgical centers, medical office towers, a portfolio that stretched across 3 states, contracts, accounts, buildings with her name engraved on polished plaques. And all of it built after starting from nothing. Her first marriage had collapsed in her early 30s. No children, just debt and ambition and a stubborn refusal to be poor the rest of her life. She had clawed her way up, one brutal decision at a time. By the time she turned 45, she was rich enough to stop working. She never did. But the house grew too quiet, the dinners too solitary. Success tasted flatter without someone to share it with. Then Nathan appeared. He'd been the charming operations manager at one of her flagship hospitals, 18 years younger. Easy smile, quick wit. He laughed at her dry jokes and listened when she ranted about regulation and insurance reimbursements. When he asked her out for dinner, her first thought was, he must be joking. He wasn't. He had made her feel wanted, feminine, alive. She'd bought into that warmth like someone frozen buying the sun. She'd ignored the little shadows she sometimes glimpsed in his eyes when she thought she wasn't looking, dismissed them as imagination. She knew better now. The soft squeak of the door opening brought her attention back into the room. She didn't move. "Thank you, doctor," Nathan murmured in the hallway, voice rough with what sounded like grief. "Just do everything you can." "We are." The door shut behind him with a gentle click. Leather soles moved slowly towards her bed. His cologne reached her first, a spicy, expensive scent she'd chosen for him last year in Paris. She'd loved it then. Now it turned her stomach. The mattress dipped as he sat on the edge. A warm hand slipped into hers. She let her body stay limp, her breathing even. The nurses believed she was drifting in and out, mostly sedated. I'd heard one of them tell Nathan that morning, "She's comfortable. She probably can't hear us anymore." Idiots, she thought. You work in my hospital and still underestimate me. Nathan's thumb stroked the back of her hand in slow circles. To anyone walking in, it would look like a picture of devoted love. He leaned closer, the heat of his breath brushed her ear. 3 days, he whispered. The words sounded almost reverent. 3 days, and it's all mine. If a heart could freeze mid-beat, hers would have. His tone was wrong, too light, too satisfied. He chuckled under his breath, a low, ugly sound she had never heard before. Took long enough. For years, he went on, voice barely above a murmur, I woke up next to that driven, frantic face of yours, always thinking, always planning, always talking about metrics and ethics and responsibility to patients, like you were some kind of saint. He squeezed her hand a little harder. Do you know how exhausting that was, Miranda? Living like an accessory to your empire? Rage burned through her sedated calm, hot and fast, but she stayed motionless. Your mansions, your hospitals, your precious investments, his mouth was near her cheek now. You thought you were buying yourself happiness when you married me. Cute, really. You saw a younger man and decided you deserved him, like everything else you've ever taken. His words were little needles, piercing places she had known were soft. But he exhaled, slow and almost pleased, I'm patient. I can wait for the main event. His thumb traced lazy patterns across her wrist. You really should have been more careful with what you drank, Mira. The nickname sounded poisoned now. He lowered his voice even more, as if sharing an intimate secret with a lover. Just a little extra added to your herbal tea each morning. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would set off alarms. He gave a tiny, appreciative laugh. Every test, every scan pointed to stress, age, overwork. Everyone believed it. Even you, brilliant woman blinded by her own ego. Her mind snapped through memories like photographs tossed on a table. The unexplained fatigue, the waves of nausea, the day she almost fainted during a board meeting and brushed it off as low blood sugar. The way Nathan was always there with a steaming mug afterwards. He had been poisoning her for months. "You'll be gone in a matter of days," he whispered, brushing his lips against her knuckles, "and I will finally get what I earned putting up with you. The estates, the clinics, the accounts, all of it. 3 years of smiling at your friends, pretending to care about your speeches. 3 years of playing the perfect husband. I think that deserves a reward, don't you?" He released her hand, abruptly bored, and smoothed the blanket over her, as if tucking a child into bed. "Rest well, Miranda," he said softly. "You've worked hard. You can let go now." He stood, walked to the door, and pulled it open. "Nurse," he called loudly and trembling. "Could someone check on her? She seems weaker." Concern, fear, the performance of a devastated spouse, honed to perfection. The door closed again. Miranda opened her eyes. The ceiling above her wavered in her vision, not from illness this time, but from a fury so sharp it almost felt clean. In that furious clarity, the last few weeks—
"What?" she stammered. No, that's impossible. You don't even know me." "I know enough," Miranda said. "I know you keep working double shifts rather than let your mother's bills go to collections. I know you showed up to work the morning after she died because you couldn't afford the day off. I know you could have stolen morphine from the supply closet a dozen times and didn't. I checked." A broken laugh burst out of Danny. You ran a background check on a housekeeper?" "I'm dying, not stupid," Miranda said. "And I needed someone who couldn't be bought, because they already knew the price of everything." Tears slid down Danny's cheeks, silent and helpless. "I'm not asking you to be a saint, Danny. When this is over, spend the money however you like. Travel, sleep, eat something that doesn't come from a vending machine. But there is one thing I need from you in return." Danny scrubbed her face with the back of her hand, nodding too quickly. "Anything. You make sure he pays for what he's done. You take this to the DA. You testify. You endure whatever he throws at you in court, and you don't let him scare you into giving him a cent." Danny's eyes hardened just a little. "I promise." "Good. Then sit, and don't open that door for anyone but my attorney." Danny dragged a chair to a corner and sank into it, cart parked beside her. She sat there, hands twisting in the thin fabric of her uniform, heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The clock ticked. The light outside the window shifted from harsh white to the gold of late afternoon, then to the first blue-gray hints of evening. Miranda drifted in and out, never quite losing consciousness. Each time she woke, Danny was still there, a silent figure in a plastic chair, watching her like a guard who didn't yet know how to guard anything. At last, the door opened with a quick professional knock. A woman in a dark blazer stepped inside first, mid-50s, sharp cheekbones, sable hair cut neatly at the jaw. Her eyes scanned the room in a single sweep, taking in Miranda, the monitors, the chair in the corner, the closed blinds. "Miranda," she said quietly, "you look like hell." "Good," Miranda rasped. "I wouldn't want my own lawyer lying to me." Behind her came a compact man with a medical bag slung over his shoulder, salt and pepper hair, intelligent eyes behind thin-rimmed glasses. And behind him, a notary with a leather case and a serious expression. Laura shut the door with her heel. This is Dr. Ethan Klein, neurologist from Mercy West. This is Miss Holden, licensed notary. My paralegal is downstairs handling paperwork." Dr. Klein set his bag down, stepped up to the bed, and gave Miranda the kind of assessing look a man gives when every second matters. "Name?" he asked. "Miranda Elise Cole." "Do you know where you are?" "In a room I designed," she said dryly, "in the flagship hospital of the company I own in Houston." "What day is it?" She told him. She gave him the name of the state governor, the president, the CEO of her own company's main competitor. She recited for good measure the definition of a living will. He nodded slowly, took some notes, and asked her to follow his finger with her eyes. After a brief exam, he turned to the notary. She is alert, oriented, and understands what she's doing. Her body is failing, but her mind is still sharper than half my residence. The notary wrote it down. "Good," Laura said. "Let's get to work." She pulled a tablet from her bag and perched on the windowsill, fingers moving quickly over the screen. Miranda told the story in clipped, brutal sentences. The secret blood tests, the unidentified sedative, Nathan's confession when he wasn't listening. Every detail of the deterioration he had orchestrated. Danny sat motionless in the corner, sweat cooling on the back of her neck as she listened to the facts of murder laid out like a business plan. Laura's jaw clenched tighter with every word. "You have the lab reports?" she asked when Miranda finished. "In my home safe. Third shelf. Code is the date my grandmother died. You know it. We used it in the trust documents. Do you authorize me to retrieve them? Now, in case he suspects and destroys anything." "Do it. Make copies, as many as you need." Laura nodded, tapped a few more lines on her tablet, then looked up. "You're sure about this air?" Miranda turned her head toward the corner. "Danny, come closer." The housekeeper stood reluctantly, feeling like a kid called to the principal's office. She stepped to the foot of the bed, palms damp. "This is Daniela Brooks. She cleans rooms on the 4th floor, the 2nd floor, wherever they send her. She makes less in a month than I spend on floral arrangements. She's getting everything." Danny's knees almost buckled. "Everything?" the notary repeated, eyebrows climbing. Miranda nodded once. "Every asset held in my name alone as of the date of my death. The house, the clinics, the stocks, the accounts. Existing donations stand as written, but the residue, all of it, goes to her." Laura's fingers flew. "Will state that the property is premarital and separate from her current marriage. Will explicitly disinherit the spouse and close any statutory gaps he might use." She read the draft aloud, her voice steady and crisp. "I, Miranda Elise Cole, being of sound mind." At the line naming Danny, the girl flinched as if struck. "Do you understand what this means?" she asked gently. "You will become very wealthy, very visible, and very interesting to dangerous people." I think so," she whispered. "I'm terrified, but I promised her." The notary stepped forward. "We'll need 2 neutral witnesses besides myself and the doctor's capacity note attached." Laura opened the door just enough to flag down a nurse from another wing, someone who didn't know Miranda beyond the name on the chart. The young man came in, eyes wide, signed where he was told, and left looking as if he'd accidentally wandered through a secret door. The papers were printed on a portable device the notary had brought. The sound of it chugging out pages was absurdly loud in the quiet room. "Last chance to change your mind," Laura said quietly, sliding the documents onto the tray table. "I've changed my mind too many times about things that mattered less. Not this." Her hand shook as she picked up the pen, but the signature came out surprisingly neat. A small, elegant curl of ink that placed her entire life on a different path. The notary stamped. Dr. Klein wrote his certification. Everyone signed where they had to. Laura gathered the documents with the care of someone lifting a newborn. She's go straight to my office safe and the notary's archive. Tomorrow, there will be certified copies filed where they need to be. He can scream all he wants once he finds out. He won't be able to move a comma. Miranda sagged back into the pillows, spent. Now, she said, looking at Danny once more, I need to ask you something in front of everyone. Danny swallowed hard. Okay. Do you agree, Miranda asked, to testify about what you've heard and seen today if a court requires it, including what you heard from my husband if it ever comes to that? Do you agree to stand between him and this inheritance, no matter how much he tries to scare you? Danny's eyes were wet again, but they were steady. Yes, she said, I do. Good, Miranda whispered. Then I can die in peace. A hush settled over the room. Even the machines seemed to quiet themselves. One by one, they left. The doctor, the notary, the nurse who had been dragged in as a witness. Laura lingered a moment by the door. I'll bring the DA into this as soon as I have your lab reports, she murmured. We're not just protecting your money, we're going after him. Make sure you do, Miranda said, and make sure she's protected when you do. I will, Laura replied. When the door finally closed, the only sound left was Miranda's breathing and the ticking of the clock. Go home, Miranda told Danny, voice faint. You've just had your life turned upside down. The least you deserve is a night's sleep. Danny didn't move. Will you be okay? Miranda smiled, a small, crooked thing. I've arranged for my heir and my revenge. That's as okay as I am going to get. She pressed a trembling hand over her mouth, nodded, and quietly slipped out. Miranda stared at the darkening window. 3 days, they'd said. She lasted 1. The nurses found her in the early hours of the morning, gone, her face oddly relaxed for a woman who had spent her life clenching her jaw against the world. When the news reached Nathan, he collapsed against the wall outside her room, sobbing dramatically into his hands. Staff members who had hated his slick smiles for years patted his shoulder, murmuring awkward consolations. He hugged them, thanked them, declared through tears that Miranda had been his whole world. He looked, for all the world, like a man whose heart had just broken. Only once, as he turned away, a small, sharp flicker of triumph glinted in his eyes. By 9 o'clock that same morning, he was sitting behind Miranda's desk in her corner office, legs stretched out, hands laced behind his head. The city glittered through the floor-to-ceiling glass. Property folders lay open in front of him, asset lists, portfolio summaries, bank account snapshots. All of it, in his mind, belonged to him now. 3 years of patience, he thought. 3 years of listening to endless lectures about ethics and policy. 3 years of pretending to care about compliance. Worth every second. He spun her chair halfway around, letting it glide, savoring the feel of leather and power. His phone buzzed. Renee Clark, the pharmacist. He smirked and answered, "Hey, beautiful." She asked, "How bad is it?" Voice tight. "She died just before dawn," Nathan said, allowing himself a little satisfaction in the words. On the other end, she didn't laugh. "And the toxicology? Any autopsy?" "No reason," Nathan said. "She was already being worked up for failure. They'll blame stress and age, maybe her diet. No one's screaming murder." "Relax. I told you, I took the long route for a reason." "And the inheritance?" Renee asked. "She didn't change a thing," he said confidently. "I checked her home safe last night, while she was still breathing. Same old documents. The will drafted 4 years ago. No kids, no alternate heirs, just me." There was a pause. "I still don't like it," Renee muttered. "The drug wasn't meant to be used that way. If anyone connects it..." "They won't," he cut in. "You sold it off the record. There's no prescription trail. And soon I'll be moving everything offshore. 6 months tops, and we'll be sipping cocktails somewhere warm while other people manage the clinics." A soft, skeptical sigh. "Just move fast, Nathan. Don't get arrogant." "I just pulled off the perfect crime," he said lightly. "I think I've earned a little arrogance." He poured himself a measure of her favorite scotch from the cabinet, lifted it toward the window in a private toast, and took a slow sip. Perfection, he thought. The knock at the door interrupted his self-congratulation. "Come in," he called, setting the glass aside. The house's longtime steward, an older woman named Margie, who had worked for Miranda since the early days, stepped in, red-eyed but composed. "Mr. Reed, Miss Stein is here to see you, the lawyer." Nathan blinked. "Laura, now?" "She says it's about Mrs. Cole's estate." Margie's tone held no warmth. "Send her in," Nathan said, smoothing his shirt and sliding into the role of grieving widower. Laura walked in without offering a hand, face unreadable. "Nathan," she said in a neutral tone, "my condolences." "Thank you," he replied, conjuring a tremor. "I still feel like I'm in shock. This won't take long," she cut in. "There are legal matters that cannot wait." He frowned faintly. "I assumed everything would transfer automatically. The will was done years ago. We talked about—" "That will is no longer in force," Laura said. "Your wife executed a new one yesterday." The word slammed into him harder than any physical blow. "No, she didn't," he said after a stunned beat. "She was unconscious. The doctor said she was lucid enough to pass a capacity exam administered by an independent neurologist. Certified, documented, recorded. A notary oversaw the signing. There are multiple witnesses and a video copy." Something cold slid down his spine. "To whom?" he demanded, his voice cracking. "To whom? Who did she leave it to? A cousin? Some charitable foundation? Who?" "The will shall be formally read tomorrow morning at the notary's office. You will receive an invitation. For now, all you need to know is that you are not the primary beneficiary." Rage boiled up so fast he forgot to act. "I will contest it," he yelled, slamming his palm down on the desk so hard the glass rattled. "That is your right," Laura said, "but I suggest you hire your own attorney. You will find the will very, very sturdy." She turned to leave. "You're enjoying this," Nathan hissed. Laura paused at the door. For the first time, something sharp flickered in her gaze. "I promised your wife I'd make sure her last wishes were carried out," she said. "That's all I am enjoying." She walked out. Nathan stared at the closed door, chest heaving. For days, he'd fed himself on the image of walking out of that office as its unquestioned master. Now all he could see was a stranger's hand reaching for his prize. He grabbed his phone and jabbed at Renee's name. "We've got a problem, a big one," he said when she answered. The next morning, he walked into the notary's office with his jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Renee walked beside him in a dark suit, hair pulled back, expression carefully arranged into that of a supportive family friend. The notary, a gray-haired man with tired eyes, and the posture of someone who had seen too many people learn unpleasant truths in this very room, greeted them politely. Laura sat at the table, her paralegal Leo at his side, tablet at ready. "Where's the heir?" Nothing demanded, scanning the room. "Who is she? I want to see the face of the person stealing my life." "The beneficiary has granted power of attorney to Miss Stein for the purposes of this proceeding. She will not be present." "Convenient," Nathan sneered. The notary opened a file, extracted a document, and cleared his throat. "Last will and testament of Miranda Elise Cole." He read the formalities. Then, calmly, he spoke the name. "I bequeath all of my separate property, including but not limited to my primary residence, controlling shares in Cole Care Medical, and all liquid and non-liquid assets titled in my name to one Daniela Brooks, currently employed as a housekeeping staff member at Cole Care Medical." For a moment, Nathan thought he'd misheard. "Who?" he croaked. "Who?" "Mrs. Brooks is a hospital cleaner," Laura said, almost gently. "You passed her in the hallways dozens of times." A cleaner? Nathan shot to his feet. A janitor? She leaves everything to a janitor? The law does not weigh beneficiaries by profession, the notary said. Miss Cole was free to leave her estate as she saw fit. This is fraud, Renee burst out. She was dying. She was on medications. How can you pretend the capacity evaluation, Leo said, sliding a report across the table, was conducted by Dr. Ethan Klein, an independent neurologist. You'll find his credentials attached. There is also a video record of the signing. Miss Cole was responsive, aware, and very clear about her reasons. This is insane, Nathan said, voice shaking. I've been her husband for 3 years. I took care of her. You dined out on her money in her name, Laura murmured. The court will see which version aligns with the evidence. I will contest it, he said. I will take it to every court in the state. I will... And spend the last of your savings doing so, Laura replied. You're of course entitled to try. Renee gripped his arm hard under the table, nails digging in warningly. He said nothing more. When the meeting ended, he stalked out onto the street like a man walking through water. Cars rushed by, people chatted on sidewalks. Life moved. His life had stopped. That girl, he muttered as they reached the car. We find her, we make her sign everything back. Money talks. Fear talks louder. Renee studied his face. Are you sure you want to keep doubling down? We've already crossed more lines than I can count. I didn't risk prison for 3 years just to walk away empty-handed. We're too far in to stop now. Miles away, in a cramped studio apartment in another city, the woman whose name had just been read sat on a second-hand couch, staring at a cheap lamp. Danny's world had turned unreal. She'd left the hospital with the weight of a promise pressing on her shoulders. Then Laura had visited her with a thick stack of papers and gentle explanations. Property valuations, bank statements, letters from the court affirming the legitimacy of the new will. Congratulations, Miss Brooks. You're wealthy beyond anything you've ever imagined. She hadn't felt congratulated. She'd felt like someone had dropped an anvil into her lap and told her not to get crushed. The money felt tainted. Not because it had been earned badly, but because she knew exactly what it had cost. One woman's slow death under the hands of the man who'd vowed to protect her. Every knock at the door made her flinch now. Every unknown number on her phone made her stomach twist. Laura kept in contact. She'd moved Danny to a small city 2 hours away, paid the deposit on a safe apartment in a generic complex, set up accounts in her name with careful legal structures. The DA will want to talk to you soon. They're reviewing evidence now. You'll be a key witness. Danny nodded, fingers muddling the edge of her mug. I'm not scared of court. I'm scared of him. That's why we're moving faster than he is, and that's why I've hired one more person to help. Detective Mark Hale didn't look like the private investigators Danny had seen on TV. He wasn't glamorous or mysterious. He was broad-shouldered, plain-featured, with kind eyes that had seen too much. He met her at Laura's office, listened calmly as she described the night in the hospital, then said, We're going to make sure you're not alone in this, but I won't lie. He's going to come after you. He thinks you stole his payday. I didn't steal anything. I didn't ask for this. That won't matter to him. So we get ahead of him. He dove into the case with the thoroughness of an ex-detective who missed the chase. Pharmacy security footage, financial records, hospital camera logs. He noted every time Nathan appeared with a thermos, every instance of sudden deterioration after a visit, every purchase Renee had made off the books. At the same time, District Attorney Carla Nguyen spread the file across her desk and weighed it like a judge. A rare palliative sedative in Miranda's blood, no medical justification, lab reports from 2 independent facilities, a detailed symptom diary Miranda had kept, and now a confession captured on tape, hidden in Danny's cheap little voice recorder she'd started carrying on Laura's advice. Taken together, it painted a picture that screamed premeditation. Carla gave the order, open a homicide investigation under first-degree murder. Nathan, unsurprisingly, didn't take the legal maneuvering as a sign to retreat. He hired rougher men. He sent them nosing around Danny's old neighborhood, waving money in front of her former landlord, her coworkers, anyone who might have even a vague hint of where she'd gone. Mark stayed half a step ahead of them, monitoring movements, intercepting information, feeding carefully crafted leaks into the rumor mill. One such leak said that Danny worked late shifts in a small lab in Charlotte.
The bait didn't take long to find its fish. Nathan arrived with 2 bodyguards and Renee in tow, under the cover of dusk. When Danny left the lab that evening, clutching her bag and wishing the bus stop were closer, the black SUV slid into place alongside her. "Get in, Daniela," he called from the rear seat. "We need to talk." She ran. Big hands caught her arms, her scream was muffled by a palm. She was shoved into the SUV, pinned between muscle and cold leather. The city blurred by, streetlights streaking past like comets. "Why make this so dramatic?" Nathan asked conversationally, turning in his seat to face her. "We could have met in an office somewhere, talked like civilized people." She stared at him, through the fear. "Civilized people don't murder their wives." His nostrils flared. "Careful," he said. "You're not as untouchable as you think you are just because some papers have your name on them." They drove out of town, onto rougher roads. The SUV finally stopped near a derelict warehouse that looked like it had been abandoned before Danny was born. Inside, the air was cold and damp. The echo of footsteps chased itself around the bare walls. "Here's how this goes," Nathan said, pulling folded documents from his inner pocket. "You sign this." He flicked the pages open with a practiced hand. "It says you renounce the inheritance. You say you were overwhelmed, you're a poor girl who suddenly got scared of money. It moves into a charitable foundation I control. You get a nice consolation prize, a few $100,000, enough for your noble conscience and your debt correctors." "And if I don't?" she asked, voice shaking but audible. He smiled, without warmth. "I dosed a woman I woke up beside for 3 years, watched her body shut down piece by piece. You think I'll lose sleep over one more?" In the distance, faint at first, then growing, sirens wailed. Nathan froze. The bodyguards looked at each other. The warehouse door burst open. Flashlights cut through the gloom. "Police!" a voice shouted. "Hands where we can see them." The timing was so perfect, it felt like a movie. Mark Hale rushed to Danny's side while officers cuffed Nathan and his men. "You okay?" Mark asked, helping her sit up, his hand a solid weight between her shoulders. "I'm not dead," she croaked, "so better than it could have been." "You did exactly what we needed," he said. "You got him talking. We've got it all." He tapped the tiny recorder hidden in the lining of her jacket. It had captured every threat, every statement, every smug confession. Everything Nathan had said in that dim warehouse would become the rope that tightened around his own neck. At the station, Carla Nguyen sat across from Nathan in an interview room and played the recording. His own voice filled the room, boasting about dosing Miranda for months, talking about bodies disappearing in swamps, threatening Danny. He stared at the table, jaw working, hands cuffed in front of him.
"You're charged with first-degree murder," Carla said when the audio ended, "and with attempted murder, kidnapping, and coercion. You're done, Mr. Reed." He asked for a lawyer. It wouldn't help much. The trial that followed months later was long and exhausting, but inevitable. Renee, faced with her own charges, flipped. She testified about the off-the-record sales, the rehearsed lies about a dying mother. The pharmacist who'd sold him the drug broke down on the stand, confessing amid sobs that she'd been desperate for money and never asked enough questions. Doctors testified about Miranda's lab results. Mark walked the jury through every frame of security footage. Carla built her case brick by brick. Danny took the stand last. The courtroom looked impossibly big to her when she first stepped onto the worn wooden floor. The air felt too thin. Nathan's stare burned into her from the defendant's table. She told the jury about the hospital room, about Miranda's request, about the new will, about the warehouse, the blows, the threats, about the promise she'd made to a dying woman whose hand had still been warm. She didn't embellish, she didn't dramatize. She just told the truth, voice cracking at times, hands clenching around the rail. When she stepped down, she felt as if she'd just crossed a bridge that broke behind her. In the end, the verdict didn't surprise anyone who had been paying attention. Guilty, on all counts. The judge's sentence, 22 years without the possibility of early release, landed like a full stop at the end of a long, ugly sentence. Nathan went still when he heard it, not outraged, not begging, just empty. Like someone who had finally understood that the game he'd been playing had no more moves.
In his cell later, he would lie awake listening to the sounds of steel and snoring and distant television, and realize that Miranda's revenge was far more precise than anything he'd done to her. She hadn't just ensured he'd go to prison, she'd made sure the one thing he valued above everything, money, would never be his. That was the wound that would never heal. Months turned into half a year. Winter faded, spring crept in with stubborn green shoots between city cracks. In a sunlit office overlooking a quieter street in another part of town, Danny sat across from Laura, a mug of decent coffee in her hands, instead of the watery break room version she'd lived on for years. "The Sybil case is finally done," Laura said, sliding a folder toward her. "The last of Nathan's challenges have been dismissed. The court upholding the will was unanimous." "So, that's it?" Danny asked, softly. "No more court dates? No more hearings?" "Not unless you decide to sue anyone yourself," Laura said, with a hint of humor in her voice. "Legally, Miranda's estate is yours." Danny stared at the folder. $40 million, give or take. It was too big a number to wrap her mind around. It didn't look like anything in her cramped apartment. It didn't sound like anything in the way people called her ma'am instead of hey you. "What do I do with it?" she asked, half to herself. "Whatever you want," Laura said. "That's the terrifying and wonderful part." Danny had already started. She'd sold the 2 shopping plazas she knew she could never manage. She'd kept one hospital, the original coal care facility, not as a trophy but as a responsibility, installing a seasoned CEO and an ethics committee that actually had teeth. She paid off every debt she had ever owed. Her mother's, her own, an old payday loan her cousin had taken out in her name when they were both desperate, for which she'd been furious at the time. That too was gone. She'd set up a small foundation under Miranda's name to help families drowning under medical debt the way she once had. Not huge, not flashy, but real. She'd given bonuses to the lowest paid staff at the hospital, the night cleaners, the nursing assistants, the cafeteria workers who never got their names on plaques. She'd made sure Margie, the house steward who had stayed loyal to Miranda until the end, could retire comfortably. She didn't buy a sports car. She didn't start wearing designer clothes. She still took the bus sometimes, out of habit, because she liked the anonymous calm of it. "What do you want for yourself?" Laura asked. "Not for Miranda's memory, not for justice. For you." Danny thought for a long moment. "I want to go to school," she said at last. "I want to study psychology. I want to understand how someone like him can justify what he did, and how someone like her kept believing in people even as they failed her." Laura smiled. "Then that's what you do." Danny enrolled that fall. She wasn't the youngest in her classes, but she wasn't the oldest either. She sat in lecture halls with students who never scrubbed urine off a tile floor, and she listened, and she took notes, and she thought about fear and greed and courage. She didn't introduce herself as the girl who inherited a fortune. She just said, "I'm Danny. I work in healthcare management sometimes." On weekends, she visited the hospital, not in a uniform, but with a clipboard. She asked the cleaners what they needed, she sat in on meetings about patient care, and actually listened to the nurses instead of just the doctors. Occasionally, she drove out to the house that had once been Miranda's fortress, and later her prison. She hadn't sold it. Not yet. She wasn't ready. The first time she walked through it alone, the silence felt heavy. She wandered through the gleaming kitchen, the library full of medical texts and business books, the wide living room that must have hosted more fundraisers than private conversations. Upstairs, in the master bedroom, a framed photograph sat on the nightstand. Miranda in her 40s, a hint of a smile at the corners of her mouth, eyes direct and unflinching. She picked up the frame, thumb unconsciously brushing the glass. "They gave him 22 years, she said into the room. "You probably already know that wherever you are, but I promised I'd say it out loud here." She set the picture down carefully. "I haven't blown the money," she added, "just in case you're wondering. I'm paying people what they deserve. I'm paying my bills on time. I bought decent furniture instead of whatever was cheapest on the curb. I still make too much instant ramen, but that's habit, not necessity." Her voice softened. "And I'm okay," she said. "Some days I still wake up thinking I'm late for the morning shift. Some nights I dream about that warehouse, but most days, I'm just living. Wind moved the curtains, letting in a slice of air that smelled faintly of jasmine from the garden. She lingered a few more minutes, then left the bedroom and closed the door behind her lightly, as if someone was still sleeping inside. Life didn't turn into a fairy tale. It turned into something quieter and better. Routines, study, work, occasional legal letters to sign, occasional visits to Laura to go over reports. Once a year, on the anniversary of Miranda's death, Danny would walk past the courthouse where the verdict had been read and stand for a moment, watching people come and go. Most of them had no idea who she was. To them, she was just another woman on the sidewalk, holding a coffee, lost in thought. That anonymity felt like a gift. She knew what Nathan had never understood, that money wasn't freedom if you had to kill for it. Freedom was being able to choose what kind of person you would be when no one was watching. Miranda had chosen at the end to believe that someone invisible could be trusted with everything. Danny lived every day trying to prove her right.